The world is on edge, gripped by a sense of uncertainty and anxiety that stretches from the highest levels of government to ordinary people on the street. Every headline, every breaking news alert seems to signal a new crisis or escalation, and the stakes have rarely felt higher. As US-Iran tensions reach a breaking point in early 2026, the world watches with bated breath. The relationship between these two nations has always been fraught, but now, the risk of open conflict feels more real than ever before. Protests in Iran have been met with brutal crackdowns, drawing global attention and outrage. The images of demonstrators facing off against riot police and the stories of injured civilians have sparked a wave of solidarity and condemnation from around the world. President Donald Trump signals possible strong U.S. responses, raising the stakes for the entire region. His administration's statements are closely watched, as every word and gesture could tip the balance between diplomacy and disaster. This crisis is more than a bilateral standoff. It's a test of global power, especially for Russia and China. Both nations are eager to assert their influence, and their responses could reshape alliances and rivalries for years to come. Recent U.S. military actions, including in Venezuela, highlight America's unmatched ability to project force worldwide. These moves send a clear message to both adversaries and allies. The U.S. remains a dominant military power, willing to act decisively when its interests are threatened. Around the globe, analysts and citizens alike are trying to make sense of rapidly shifting events. Social media is ablaze with speculation, while experts debate the possible outcomes and risks of escalation. The situation is fluid, with Trump oscillating between threats and restraint, leaving allies and rivals uncertain. This unpredictability adds another layer of complexity, making it difficult for other nations to plan their next moves. At its core, this is about the fate of Iranian citizens and the future of international power structures. Ordinary people in Iran are caught in the crossfire, while world leaders debate the next steps on the global stage. The outcome will have lasting global consequences. From the price of oil to the stability of financial markets, the ripple effects of this crisis will be felt far beyond the Middle East. In this video, we'll break down the protests, the White House's choices, and the limits of Russian and Chinese influence. We'll explore how each decision, each confrontation, could alter the course of history. Let's examine what these events mean for the future of global relations, and why the world is watching so closely as history unfolds before our eyes. Since December 2025, Iran has erupted in massive protests that have swept across the country, from the bustling streets of Tehran to smaller towns and rural areas. The scale and intensity of these demonstrations are unlike anything seen in recent decades, with people from all walks of life joining together in a rare show of unity. The spark was economic hardship. Soaring inflation, skyrocketing food prices, and a collapsing currency have left millions struggling to afford basic necessities. Scenes of long lines for bread and empty grocery shelves have become all too common, fueling public anger and frustration. What began as outrage over inflation and rampant unemployment, especially among the country's youth, quickly grew into something much larger. The protests have become a powerful outlet for years of pent-up grievances. Soon the movement shifted focus, with demonstrators demanding fundamental freedoms, women's rights, and an end to decades of clerical rule. The sight of women removing their hijabs in public has become a symbol of defiance and hope for change. The regime's response has been swift and brutal. Security forces have cracked down with overwhelming force, using tear gas, batons, and live ammunition. Thousands have been killed, and there are heartbreaking reports of children among the dead. Some estimates suggest the true death toll could be far higher, as the government tightly controls information. Journalists work in secret, and social media is heavily restricted, making it difficult to know the full extent of the crackdown. The world has watched in shock as images and stories of the violence have emerged. International outrage is growing, and global leaders are under mounting pressure to take action and support the Iranian people. For the United States, the crisis has become a central foreign policy challenge. American officials are weighing how to respond, balancing humanitarian concerns with strategic interests in the region. The Iranian uprising is now a flashpoint, threatening to draw in major powers and destabilize the already volatile Middle East. The risk of wider conflict looms large as tensions escalate. The stakes for Iran and for the world could not be higher. The outcome of these protests may shape the future of the region for years to come. President Trump's administration has openly debated a forceful response to Iran's crackdown. On January 11, Trump warned of very strong options, hinting at possible military action. Days later, he cut off diplomatic talks, demanding an end to the violence before any dialogue could resume. The threat of U.S. strikes became explicit, sending shockwaves through Tehran and beyond. Yet just as tensions peaked, Trump paused, citing Iran's reported cancellation of mass executions. This public back and forth revealed a high-stakes negotiation, with military threats used as leverage for humanitarian outcomes. The administration's approach, maximum pressure, public ultimatums, and the credible threat of force. The world watched, uncertain if the U.S. would act, or if diplomacy could prevail. The crisis remains unresolved, with the threat of escalation ever present. Why would the United States consider launching military strikes against Iran? The answer is complex, rooted in both immediate events and long-term strategic thinking. At the forefront, the U.S. aims to punish Iran's regime for its ongoing human rights abuses, and to deter further violence against its own people. The Iranian government's crackdown on dissent has drawn international condemnation, and Washington sees military action as a way to signal that such repression will not go unanswered. Strikes would send a powerful message, not just to Iran, but to the world at large. America wants to demonstrate that it will not stand by while mass repression occurs, and that it is willing to lead a global response when basic rights are threatened. Beyond humanitarian reasons, there are strategic calculations at play. The U.S. seeks to deter adversaries worldwide, reinforcing its willingness to use force when its interests or values are at stake. This show of strength is meant to remind both friends and foes of America's military reach. Recent U.S. operations in places like Nigeria, Syria, and Venezuela reveal a consistent pattern. America acts decisively to protect its interests, enforce international norms, and maintain global order. These interventions serve as warnings to regimes considering similar crackdowns or destabilizing actions. Striking Iran would also test the resolve of its powerful allies, Russia and China. It would expose the limits of their support and force them to weigh the costs of direct confrontation with the U.S. over Iran's actions. Most analysts agree, neither Moscow nor Beijing is likely to intervene militarily against U.S. action. Their support for Iran is real, but it has clear boundaries, especially when faced with the prospect of direct conflict with American forces. This scenario would highlight the unique global reach of American power and the risks that come with relying on alternative alliances. For many countries, the U.S. remains the ultimate security guarantor. The U.S. is still the only nation capable of projecting overwhelming force anywhere on the planet. This unmatched capability shapes the calculations of every other power, friend, or foe, and underpins the current world order. By acting in Iran, the U.S. would reinforce its status as the world's decisive military actor, reminding all nations that American resolve and resources remain formidable. The message is clear: American military supremacy is not just a claim, it's a reality, and rivals are acutely aware of it. As tensions rise, the world is watching closely to see if the U.S. will act, and what message its actions will send for the future of global security. The U.S. military's global presence is unmatched, forming the backbone of its influence. It's not just about budget or technology, it's about logistics and reach. With bases worldwide, the U.S. can deploy forces rapidly to any crisis zone. Russia and China, by contrast, have regional power, but lack global logistics and forward bases. When crises erupt, the U.S. can act immediately. Its rivals cannot. Recent U.S. actions in multiple regions, Nigeria, Syria, Venezuela, prove this unique capability. Russia's and China's militaries are formidable at home, but struggle to project power far afield. This practical advantage means the U.S. can shape events across continents, often simultaneously. In global disputes, America remains the only actor with true worldwide reach. That's why, in moments of crisis, the world still looks to Washington. The U.S. intervention in Venezuela in January 2026 exposed the limits of Russian and Chinese alliances. Despite years of support from Maduro, neither Moscow nor Beijing intervened when the U.S. acted. Their backing proved rhetorical, not military, revealing these alliances as transactional, not binding. The lesson for Iran: in a showdown with the U.S., powerful friends may offer words, not protection. This realization emboldens U.S. policymakers, lowering the risk of wider conflict. For Tehran, Venezuela's fall is a warning. When it matters most, you may stand alone. The precedent shapes U.S. confidence and Iran's calculations in the current crisis. Russia and China have condemned U.S. threats against Iran, but their responses are limited to strong words. Moscow denounces American interference, while Beijing insists on non-interference and stability. Both fear regional chaos, especially disruptions to oil markets and their own interests. Yet neither is willing to risk military confrontation with the U.S. in the Persian Gulf. Their alliances with Iran are economic and political, not security guarantees. The military imbalance is clear. Challenging the U.S. far from home is a losing proposition. Their opposition is mostly for diplomatic show, not a real deterrent. The gap between their ambitions and capabilities is on full display. The Iran crisis marks a pivotal moment in global power politics. U.S. willingness to use force in multiple theaters challenges the idea of a declining America. Countries hedging between East and West now see the limits of Russian and Chinese protection. For Iran, the message is stark. Relying on Moscow or Beijing is risky. The U.S. is pursuing a new, assertive doctrine, targeted, transactional, and forceful, not open-ended. This approach is less costly, but carries risks of escalation and miscalculation. The events of 2026 are reshaping alliances and the global balance of power. American military supremacy remains decisive, even as the world grows more contested. The rules of engagement are changing, and everyone is watching. As of January 20, 2026, the immediate crisis has eased, but tensions remain high. Trump's pause on strikes, in exchange for Iran halting executions, shows that communication, however tense, still exists. The future hinges on Iran's next moves. Renewed crackdowns or provocations could reignite the threat of U.S. action. A no-war, no-peace standoff may persist, with both sides on edge and the risk of miscalculation ever present. Alternatively, sustained pressure could force change within Iran. But authoritarian regimes often double down when threatened. The U.S. has demonstrated its military reach. Russia and China have shown their limits. The strategic landscape has shifted. Alliances, deterrence, and power are all being recalibrated. The world faces a more complex, uncertain future, with American power looming large.